Hi, everyone. It's Darlene Corbett, the Unstuck expert, talking more on the theme of the imagination within the umbrella of getting unstuck. So, the imagination. Yesterday, I talked a bit about how we use it as enchanting us, but also it can be a survival mechanism, especially for children when they're being abused. I remember over the years, I did a lot of work earlier on in my private practice career. I've been in the field about I was in the field since 1982. And that's when they started to discover the whole issue of trauma, PTSD. They learned it from the Vietnam vets, what all this phenomena is around issues of sexual abuse, post-traumatic stress disorder. They realized going forward that there is a dissociative process that often takes place. People daydream. There was this whole idea that was Sybil and that she went off into very, very decisive personalities, that she didn't remember the other. Apparently, Sybil has been debunked. It was a big false narrative, sadly, because it really does a disservice to abuse victims. And dissociation does occur. It's a much more subtle thing, but I have witnessed people in my own office dissociating right in front of me. But they don't go off and disguise themselves in different clothes. I mean, I've never met anyone that has, but I do believe that there are parts that do break off, dissociate. Now, we all dissociate. There's varying degrees. Dissociation, as I said yesterday, is a daydream. We invite the imagination to help us create a new world within our own minds. Sometimes, as I said earlier, we can run away. Our imaginations can run away. Other times, we want it to be there for us. What I read way back or heard that when children were being abused and they couldn't do anything about it, the idea was, if they were in therapy, not to take away the dissociative processes. When they became adults, it interfered. But as children, it was a survival mechanism, as I said. That ability to dissociate was protective. And that's why, well, people that dissociate are very good at hypnosis. Children are highly hypnotizable anyway, because whether they've been abused or not, even if they've come from the most functional, nurturing family, they still daydream. That's how we learn to create, is daydreaming. But those children that do not really need that to protect, to create. So they can be hypnotized when they're adults very, very easily. And many other people can too. You don't have to be abused to be able to be a good hypnotic subject. Often the creative people are, in general. But our imaginations are very, very powerful. They need to be used in ways that work. And the thing about dissociation, daydreaming, hypnosis, you invite other senses sometimes to imagine. So if you think about when you smell, and I'm going to talk about smell in a moment, but you hear, you smell, you touch, you see, of course, it's often inviting the imagination or a memory. I read about, what should I say, clients told me this way back in the early 90s. There was a TV show on about a woman who had been a lawyer, and she wore very dark clothes, and I don't know what the movie was about. I'll never forget my clients telling me this. It was a group therapy session I was running. There was this woman that was very, very into defending child abuse victims. She was in the courtroom and she saw the stenographer typing and she heard the clicking and she lunged at someone. I can't remember who. And the judge looked at her and says, "You better get some help or you're going to get disbarred." She realized, she uncovered the fact that she would dissociate and she would pay attention to the clicking on the stenography or typewriter. Wherever she was, she heard a clicking of the same sound. So it shows you the power of how she could be transported, compartmentalizing herself. And maybe that clicking was there in the background as she just floated away in her mind. The one sense we often forget about, and it can evoke much, and we can imagine, is smell. We always think vision, right? That's the first, of course, visual. We use our sight. I mean, that is the prime sense we think about. Then we think sound. Smell is in the background. It's the understated sibling of the sensory family, as I often refer to various elements in life. The understated sibling, but we should not understate it because it's very important. And I heard something recently because of COVID affecting the sense of smell. Some people eventually their smell returns, thank God, but some don't. And someone said, a physician I heard, she goes, don't ignore that. This is part of your central nervous system. How right she is. We must not ignore our sense of smell. It can also be apparently diagnostic, from what I read somewhere, that of early of a sign of Alzheimer's. I'm not sure, but my dad did lose his sense of smell. He was a smoker, and we thought it was that. We attributed it to that, and perhaps it was more related to the Alzheimer's. We don't know. Who knows? But return to the imagination. So I want you to think about the fact that all our senses can come into play if you really powerfully let yourself imagine. And don't ignore smell. If people enjoy different smells, it might help tap into your imagination. If a certain aroma reminds you of days gone by that help get you through, again, invite it. Imagine it because it can get you unstuck. Maybe those days that have gone by, which we can't recapture, it's, forget it, it's done. But in your imagination, you can think about, wow, that place felt really safe, really cozy. For example, my aunt and uncle or grandparents or parents read me stories, and I could smell the scent in the room. Perhaps it was food, perhaps it was something else, perhaps it was a relative's body scent or perfume. Whatever it may be, remind yourself of that. I think about both my parents, of course. My dad's been gone for a very, very long time, but I can see his hands right now as I imagine. He used to sit in this chair, and I can see his wedding band on his hands. And I can see my mother also. I can smell my mother's scent. She died much later. I can smell my dad's too. He was a smoker though, and didn't give it up until later. So, but I can smell some of his scent. But I can see him more, and some of the memories that come back, the good, very, very positive. And my mother, I can smell her scent. I can feel her skin. It was very dark and smooth. She didn't like having dark skin. Back then, it was, unfortunately, people were bullied. Well, they still are in the way they look, but I can imagine them. I can imagine my whole house growing up. I was very fortunate. Not perfect, but it was very safe and loving. I'll say that. And I can smell certain scent of certain foods that were cooked. I'm smelling it right now. My dad and my grandfather used to enjoy frankfurts and beans on Saturday night. I was not a fan, but I can smell them now. Or fish and chips on Friday night. We're Catholic. We would celebrate, or should I say, we would abide to the no meat on Friday rule. I wasn't crazy about that either. I like fish now. I appreciate it. But so I invite you to think about positive memories that can evoke your imagination, help you get unstuck. Words of comfort, hearing those sounds, those smells, the environment. And for those of you that it was a survival mechanism and you're stuck again, or you continue to be stuck, invite your imagination to bring forth perhaps those who gave you a sense of safety, those who heard you, those who tried to protect you. We can get unstuck with our imagination, and sometimes we can look back. Again, I'm not saying go back to the past. I'm not saying stay in the past. I'm saying savor in those memories. There's only two purposes: savor in those delicious memories. What have we learned? And if you were unfortunate enough to not have an imagination that transported you to a place that was better when things weren't so great, will begin to develop yours now. Write down something good that's around you now. Just go outside and get some clues that I mentioned earlier. It's all there. If you have children, watch them. Watch what you created. Be excited for them. Perhaps you might want to read them a story, something that you didn't get, but you can be, again, transported watching them, helping them ferment their imaginations as you remind yourself that yours is still there. And if you don't have children, look at your pets. Imagine the love you have for them. Or just think about anything that can evoke a pleasant visual. Imagine what it looks like, what it sounds like, perhaps what the aroma is, even what if you can touch. If you were my hypnotic subject, I'd be having you do this within trance. But this is not hypnosis, it's visualization. It's really a multi-sensory invitation for your imagination. And don't forget about smell. It is a primal sense. It often, you smell something. I remember as a child that I could smell the air and you knew it was fall or spring. Use your imagination to get unstuck. Don't ignore your imagination. Again, yesterday, was it yesterday? Yes, I talked about, no, the day before, a quote about worry interferes with imagination. It does. It clutters the mind. Clear it out. Dust it off. And let that imagination unfold. And watch what happens. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to darlenecorbett.com. You can also read my book, Stop Depriving the World of You, a guide for getting unstuck. In the meantime, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, humbly on both. Until next week. Oops, my speaker, you can see it now. My Blue Yeti. Bye for now.